I tell people that I'm a high school teacher, they often marvel that it must be tough work. You all know the response. It's not because of all the planning and marking and extra stuff that we do. It's because my clientele are teenagers. How do you handle kids these days, they ask. Kids these days. The term has a negative connotation. You see, it implies that most kids these days somehow treat each other, and maybe even their parents and their teachers, poorly. It also implies that kids these days missed out on some kind of golden years that we were lucky enough to experience. Where do these impressions of today's young people come from? If we put our heads together, we could come up with a whole host of sources, but I hope one of those sources for you isn't like the memory I have from my own high school days in the 1990s. I was wearing my little shiny green running shorts. I brought them, I could bring them out here. And every day, our cross-country team would run down the track, past the football team on our way off campus for our runs. It started with one lone voice. Hey, faggots. And then, lots of other voices would chime in from that football field. Nobody organized any special campaign in support of our team like the pink shirt days we have every year in our schools. Could you imagine what that would look like? Green shorty short day to combat bullying? My coach, bless his heart, he honestly would have just thought he recruited a whole bunch of new runners. But seriously, what did we do when we were face to face with those football players in that situation? We just kept running, and I kept running. You see, that's what a lot of us do in situations like that. We keep running. It's a metaphor that not only implies avoiding confrontation, but it also implies a movement forward, not stopping to graze on negative feelings. That's the way I like to think of it. There's no time to be a victim when you've got big plans for your life. But nothing can take away those voices. In my line of work as a high school teacher, I hear voices just like that in the hallways. I see bullying all the time. And let me tell you that I address it. But that's not what I talk about when I talk about kids these days or the state of our schools. Because guess what? That's not the overwhelming character of kids these days, and it's not the defining thing about our schools. I'm not discounting the powerful pain that victims of bullying experience, because I've been there. But I want kids today to know that their allies are all around them in unexpected places, and they emerge at unexpected times. It wasn't until 20 years after my own high school days in the 90s that some unexpected allies emerged for me. It came about that I self-identified as gay to a classroom full of students. To be honest with you, I don't think they were really all that surprised. But it wasn't a conversation that I ever planned to deliberately have with any of my classes because, let's face it, my identity is not part of those curriculum documents. But the hidden curriculum emerges all the time, constantly in schools. The hidden curriculum I'm talking about is a term that describes all the conversations, interactions, and situations that students learn from throughout their day, but aren't documented in policy. I prefer to call it the human curriculum, the curriculum of life. So in that moment, when I came out to my students, it felt as if a bomb had dropped. Everyone in the room went dead silent. Everyone was looking at me. It was the realest, most intense, most terrifying moment of my career. But a surprising thing happened. My students had all kinds of questions for me, not about my personal life, but about gay history and other things like that. They asked me questions, and I gave them answers. But boy, was it stressful. At the end of the conversation, I had to pick up my cup of coffee that I always have, step out into the hallway, and just kind of decompress and process what had just gone on. As it does in today's digital age, of course, word spread like wildfire. Suddenly, I was no longer just Mr. Kline, now I was that teacher who had a conversation about being gay with his class. The whole situation was whipping through my mind so fast, My anxiety was going up. I felt exactly the way I did when I was in high school in the 90s, wearing my little green shorts with everybody judging me. And wouldn't you know it, suddenly I came face to face with another football player. This time, the captain of my school's team and a student in my class. He came out of the room where this had all just gone down. He walked over to where I was standing with my cup of coffee. He looked me in the eyes and he said something that I will never forget. He said, "Mr. Kline, a lot of people in that room really respect you right now." Sometimes in this line of work, we're hesitant or even terrified to share something real about ourselves with our students. But I discovered in that moment that being real with my students brought something out of that young man that I may have never known. And even greater so, it brought something out of him that he may not have realized he possessed. Here I was, face to face with another football player, but this time, instead of knocking me down, he was lifting me up. I'll tell you something, he just said that one thing to me. It just took a moment. That moment meant more to me than a building full of people wearing pink shirts. And those pink shirt days are a powerful statement alone about kids these days. That moment transformed the way I talk about kids when I talk about what it's like to be a teacher. That moment transformed that young man into a hero, my hero. Of all the assignments that I gave that young man, all the essays he wrote, that moment of kindness showed me that he possessed a human intelligence far beyond anything that I could make him write. That is the human curriculum. In our schools, we spend so much time, energy, and even money fighting bullies. But I want you to spend more of your time, energy, and money celebrating great kids and all the great things they do. Kids like Noah, who sat for over an hour in a McDonald's feeding and talking to a homeless man because he just wanted to know what his experience was like. Or kids like Lara, who says, "I'll pray for you," and she actually does. Or kids like Bluevale Collegiate Student Council, who organizes a region-wide flower campaign every year to raise money for the local cardiac care center. The list goes on and on and on. The sum of those kids is far more powerful than any fight that could happen in the hallway. The sum of those kids is far louder than any negative word that can be uttered from one student to another. The remarkable thing about my story is that it's ordinary. These kids that I'm talking about, they're ordinary kids, but they transform themselves and these situations into extraordinary ones simply by lifting others up. Yes, it is campaigns like Pink Shirt Day and other initiatives. It's social activism. It's legislation. It's the brave people who run gay-straight alliances in our schools. And it definitely is school board policies that have helped us make great strides in our schools and society as a whole. But I believe the most powerful thing are these simple moments of kindness when kids these days lift other people up. Kids these days. These stories, these amazing situations, they unfold every day, all the time in our schools. And my story is just one of them. Thank you.